Maya Wilson pulled her thin gray coat tightly around her shoulders as the cold wind swept through the crowded streets of Chicago. In one hand, she held an old backpack containing a few books, some papers, and the medicine her grandmother needed every day. To anyone passing by, Maya looked like just another struggling young woman trying to survive another difficult week. At 23 years old, Maya worked 2 jobs. During the day, she served coffee at a small cafe, and at night, she cleaned office buildings. Even with all her hard work, money was always scarce. Most of her earnings went toward rent, food, and medical care for her grandmother, the only family she had left. That morning, Maya had received a mysterious letter from a law firm. The letter instructed her to visit her local bank as soon as possible because an important matter regarding her account required immediate attention. Confused and slightly worried, she decided to go there before starting her evening shift. As she entered the luxurious building, she immediately felt out of place. Men in expensive suits and women carrying designer handbags filled the spacious lobby. Bright marble floors reflected the sparkling lights hanging from the ceiling. Maya quietly joined the line and patiently waited for her turn. At that exact moment, Richard Blackwood stepped through the bank's front doors. Richard was one of the wealthiest businessmen in the country. He owned technology companies, hotels, and real estate developments worth billions of dollars. Everyone in the bank seemed to recognize him instantly. "Good afternoon, Mr. Blackwood," the manager said enthusiastically. Richard smiled confidently as several employees hurried forward to greet him. Used to receiving special treatment everywhere he went, Richard hardly noticed the people standing around him. However, when his eyes landed on Maya, he frowned slightly. Her coat was worn, her shoes were old, and her backpack looked as though it had survived many years of use. Richard turned away and walked toward the private banking section. Several minutes later, Maya finally reached the counter. "Good afternoon," the young teller said warmly. "How may I help you today?" Maya nervously handed over her identification card. "I received a letter asking me to check my account balance," she explained. The teller nodded politely and entered Maya's information into the computer system. As Richard passed nearby, he overheard their conversation. He glanced at Maya and laughed softly. "That's interesting," he said. "Most people already know what's in their accounts." Several customers chuckled. Maya remained silent. Richard continued speaking. "Then again, perhaps it doesn't take long to count a few dollars." The laughter grew louder. The teller looked embarrassed. "Sir, that's unnecessary." Richard simply shrugged. "I was only making an observation." Maya looked directly at him. "My grandmother always says that appearances can be misleading." Richard smiled arrogantly. "Perhaps, but experience usually tells me otherwise." The teller returned her attention to the computer screen. Suddenly, the color drained from her face. She blinked once. Then she blinked again. "Is something wrong?" Maya asked. The teller stared at the screen in disbelief. "Please excuse me for a moment." She quickly called the branch manager. Within seconds, the manager appeared beside her. "What seems to be the problem?" he asked quietly. The teller pointed toward the screen. The manager's eyes widened immediately. He adjusted his glasses and examined the information once again. "That can't be correct," he whispered. Richard noticed the commotion and walked closer. "What happened?" he asked. The manager looked at Maya. "Miss Wilson, have you recently inherited any assets?" Maya shook her head. "Not that I'm aware of." The manager swallowed nervously. "Your account balance currently exceeds $50 million. The entire lobby became silent. Richard stared at the screen. $50 million. The manager slowly nodded. Maya was speechless. There must be some mistake. The manager contacted the bank's legal department while the teller carefully reviewed every detail associated with the account. An hour later, several attorneys arrived carrying official documents. One of them smiled warmly at Maya. "Miss Wilson, we've been searching for you for many years." Maya looked confused. "Searching for me?" The attorney opened a large folder. "Your grandfather invested in several technology companies decades ago. Before his death, he established a trust fund in your name. Maya's eyes filled with tears. My grandfather, the attorney nodded. He believed that one day you would need this money to build a better future. Maya remembered the stories her grandfather used to tell her. He often spoke about hard work, patience, and treating others with kindness, regardless of their social status. Unfortunately, nobody had realized the true value of his investments. Over the years, those investments had grown beyond anyone's expectations. Richard continued staring at Maya in complete disbelief. The young woman standing before him, the woman he had mocked only minutes earlier, possessed a fortune larger than that of many successful business owners. For the first time in years, Richard felt ashamed. Slowly, he approached Maya. I owe you an apology, he said quietly. Maya looked at him calmly. Why? Because I judged you unfairly. Maya smiled gently. You judged my clothes, not my character. Richard lowered his head. You're absolutely right. The bank manager immediately offered Maya access to the exclusive private banking area. To everyone's surprise, she politely declined. I would rather remain here, she said. The manager seemed puzzled. Why? Because everyone deserves equal respect. The people standing nearby exchanged embarrassed glances. Before leaving, Maya turned toward Richard one final time. My grandfather once taught me something important, she said. Richard listened carefully. He told me that money is useful, but kindness is priceless. Richard nodded slowly. I understand that now. Months passed and news of Maya's story spread throughout the city. However, instead of purchasing expensive cars or luxurious homes, she chose a different path. She paid for her grandmother's medical treatment, funded scholarships for struggling students, built shelters for homeless families, and donated millions of dollars to hospitals. People soon discovered that Maya had become one of the city's most generous philanthropists. One afternoon, a journalist asked her an important question. After everything you've experienced, what is the greatest lesson you've learned? Maya smiled softly. Never underestimate anyone. The reporter nodded. Why, Maya looked toward the crowded street outside her office window, because a person's true value can never be measured by the clothes they wear, the car they drive, or the balance in their bank account. Far away, Richard Blackwood would later remember those words for the rest of his life. After all, the richest person he had ever met was once the same poor girl he had laughed at inside a crowded bank.